On today's podcast, we'll be talking our second part with Coach Jared Rothfuss as we introduce you and talk a little bit more about the Bear Raid. This is Mark Holcomb, joined by Kirk Brown with the Football Coaches Corner podcast. Today on the podcast, the second part of I'm guessing about a three-part install, maybe. All right, of with Jared Rothfuss, the offensive coordinator at Oak Grove High School. Last week we talked about triple option. We talked a lot about Veer and some of the tags that he had on those. And today's going to be talking a little bit more about belly and counter, which, I'm fired up about that. So those are some complimentary plays. And so a recording of this podcast will be available through the podcast vehicle of your choice. We had a great response last week to the podcast and also to our YouTube channel. You can find this on our YouTube channel at Football Coaches Corner. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you like what you hear. And Coach Rothfuss, welcome back. And we're ready to talk a little bit of belly and counter.
Let's do it. I'm excited. This is some good stuff we're going to get into today. All right. Am I good on the host side of it?
Yes, sir. You're good to go.
Yep, you're the host now.
All right, let's do it. All right, so let me share my screen. We'll start with that. Make sure, can you guys see that okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's rehash last week just briefly to kind of set up. So obviously we talked a lot about inside veer and the triple option game as a whole. So this is just a diagram of when you play us, this is what you're going to get, and everybody knows that, right? So you got to stop this, number one. So 32% of our offense fell within the realm of inside veer in some capacity, whether it was tags or not, it didn't matter. So then as we transition, we have other things that we do that maybe look or appear like option or complement what we do in the option game. They maybe come from different sides of the quarterback. And so we're going to talk about what that looks like today. So I'm going to start with our belly play. So it's, old school belly. We pull either the front side guard or the center based on what we get in the front. We do some things in complement to with our boot scheme and whatnot. But in terms of just the run component, we have 4 or 5 variations that we use, but really like up front, it's all the same. And we're just kind of looking for numbers a lot of time to know, like, do we have enough to block them to that side? And so we add people to the count to ensure that we pick up any extra run fitters and whatnot. So let's jump into what that looks like. That is not the right stuff. All right, so let's jump into this. All right, so this is a clip from when we kind of got going with this stuff, and this is a 4-down team. So again, our belly play is kind of centered around, it's a down scheme, but we're really getting somebody in the face of a potential kick out guy like immediately because of where it comes from. We do try to dress it up so it looks like option. So for example, we're tied in 2x2 right here, so tied in to the right, and so we're going to give the simulation that we're running option with that motion. You can see the defense start to kind of move and adjust a little bit, and you'll kind of see them get in their option phase a little bit based on how they're going to play us. This is a guard pull scenario here. So we pull the front side guard, and you can see once we get to the backside angle how people try to plan to play us. And this is a great complement to inside veer. So there's a good look at our little back, but here's a great look at it from a great angle. So everything is down on the front side. So we just down block everything to the front side linebacker. And then we're pulling either the guard or the center based on what we're getting up front. Most of the time in even fronts, we're going to pull the guard, and most of the time in odd, we're going to pull the center. People have asked, well, what if we have a center that can't pull? We taught them both. We just felt like we needed to have both in the package and felt like we had 2 kids who could do it.
Is that a call that you guys make, or is that something that they sort out up front?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So Coach Billings does a really, really good job of training those guys on like what to look for, but there will be in-game situations where either he or together he and I will make that decision. Hey, let's go ahead and pull the center based on the front. And or if they get into situations, they do pass it off sometimes up front, and they do that on their own based on a change or a manipulation. So that's a really good question. But this is a good example. You're getting a head-up player in the tight end, and you can tell he's trying to play heavy on the down block, right? But again, maybe unlike counter or power kick out, that kicker or that kick out player is coming right now, and it's a guard. It's not a fullback. So you got a big guard right in his face, and he's underneath him immediately off the down block. And that's not a terrible job by the end, but it's just a big enough crease to allow us to get to where we need to be. And again, if you look at how it's dressed up, you see the motion player in the backfield. We are moving defenders as a result, and you can see them moving out of the screen. So that's why I like it, because I feel like it complements what we do really, really well. We can kind of hide it a little bit. this is the same game, so we're kind of picking on 15 a little bit here, and I'll be honest, we kind of did most of the game. Same situation, pulling the guard on the front side, showing option. It's a non-option play, so we're handing the football off. There is no option component to this at this point for us. There are some things we've looked at.
Now, Coach,
so
real quick,
go ahead.
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Versus, so like,
You're good.
that was a head up guy over top of your tight end. Do you ever widen that and just
We
take
do.
him man
Yep.
on? I didn't know, what kind of, because that's a tight kick out for that guard. Now
It
obviously
is.
he's getting the
Yeah,
job done,
so-
but do you ever widen that?
Yeah, so we have a call where we can arc release him to widen that out and bring him through. And it kind of depends on what we're getting in the box and what we have to account for. If we're having trouble and we don't have the numbers we want, we will go to exactly what you see in the next clip, which is a tight end wing, and we'll send them both down and kick out the next player. So kind of our rule is like, if we get a guy that is not an immediate player, like you've seen an immediate guy on the line of scrimmage for kick out, right now you're going to get a guy who's off the line of scrimmage. It could be a corner, or somebody who's not immediately there. So we're going to down everybody here. Our tight end will go completely down on the inside technique, and then our wing, which is another tight end, will arc for the inside backer, and then we kick and wrap for the next player, which is, he's not on the line of scrimmage, but by rule he knows he's got the next guy out.
Right.
So that's a really good clip right there against a 5 look.
Yeah, when you're building these rules in, down, 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 but then when you get a 6 technique who's playing head up,
Yeah.
but he's playing really, really, really heavy in the
Yep.
C gap. I
Yep.
think that changes, but this, because you guys run so much option,
That's right.
that guy's allowing that to get underneath him.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good point, because it's funny. We always joke with the coaches when we installed this play, we installed it against that look, not knowing our defense was going to have a head up player. So it was like the worst case scenario for
Right.
installing it for the first time ever. And as we went and obviously got comfortable as we saw different things. And then I learned how to add players to the box for us, like the wing. If we had a 6 and felt like we couldn't get him inside, or he was squeezing like Coach Brown asked too hard and we couldn't kick him out, I'd bring a wing into the game. We just washed the whole thing out. Right. So we had a call where those two would double on that guy if he was in their gap or whatever. We would trade the tight end a decent amount to run this play, like you see right here. This team didn't really adjust much at all. So this kick out's obviously a little bit wider and a little bit clearer. So there's different ways we got to it. We didn't always motion. Again, this is a good look at from that angle. We get the trade in place. They don't make any adjustments at all. It's easy because they're fitting inside.
But the thing that's
we're
nice
off to
about
the
this
races.
is it's the exact same for everybody up front. And that
Yep.
formation, which ends up being 4 on one side, is tough for a defense to defend. But you're not
100%.
changing anything for those guys. Yeah.
No, and by rule, like, going back to your previous question, if we get something weird on the trade, they know how to sort that out. And if the center has to pull, that they work that out. So it's never been a communication. This was our second best play. Like I said, Veer was about 32% of our offense. This was about 11% of our offense, including all its variations. This is in the playoffs, and this became probably our best play in this particular game. But again, you can see the option appearance is causing some hesitation and some movement in the back end and with the linebackers, obviously. So we're getting a pretty good little crease against a pretty well-coached team, but they're giving us enough that we can get, as it says on the screen, 6 yards. So here's a good peek at it. Again, show an option. We don't block it perfect, but, at the same time, it's still the same idea. Yeah. So the thing we start
If
to
you watch
do
the outside linebacker,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the outside linebacker's taking 2 steps up the field, and so he's misfitting. And even if he makes the play and folds back in, it's going to be for a 4 to 5 yard gain.
Yeah, exactly. And that's going back to last week. A lot of the stuff we do, those 2 steps, those couple inches play a huge role in displacement and their inability to be a part of or to make the tackles. So that's another good thing about what we do. So, going with the idea, if we get a number count we don't like, or they're adding players to it, we stick with the same idea. We tag follow. And so now the quarterback is going to stick the ball in his belly like he's going to give it to him. And then he gets right behind him and it becomes like an isolation play, but everything up front's the same. So watch the quarterback here, ball's in the belly. Now he's behind him. So if you got a kid who can run, obviously, and we're looking for that kind of kid, he just falls in behind it. But again, look at the displacement of the defense. A lot of moving parts because of the option look. But we're running a down scheme. There is no read. It's an automatic, fall behind the tailback. So we'll watch it from this angle right here. And our tailback wasn't big, so it's not like.
Yeah, you're going to outnumber him easily there for that lead blocker.
100%.
Coach, as you're
And there
showing
was
this,
times,
you've shown a couple, now you're showing some sidecar stuff. What, and I know the stuff last week was primarily out of pistol. So did you
Mhm.
just try to have to mix up what you were doing with the running back, his alignment, just trying
yeah.
to create,
Mhm.
create tendencies and then break them with this?
Yeah, 100%. Like we're trying to move into the realm of being, pretty much both. And I felt more comfortable like in sidecar because it was just it becomes a lot of teaching and moving parts when you're trying to do both and
Right.
teaching as much as what we were schematically, I think. So we progressively added pistol, and I think the kids were more comfortable running belly from the pistol alignment because it was a clearer
Gotcha.
picture and the
Right.
mechanics were a little bit easier. So
Yeah.
we're going to continue to go down that road. We're actually in our spring stuff, we're going to go pistol the entire time. That doesn't mean we're going away from sidecar, but they're comfortable in
Right.
sidecar. So we're going to start
Yeah.
working all that stuff in there. And this, I'll show this one again. This is another follow, but this is just a great example of like when you can use what we do to move people. Just watch the linebackers and the movement because we're showing option. And then you got a kid like this that can run. He just gets underneath and he's to the house. And there's a couple other examples I'll show and we can get into some of the other stuff. So belly lead is the same idea, but we're using like a back, or in our case, we use the second back. You could use a tight end to get the extra fitter in the hole. So if they're rocking a guy down, you can't account for, or you got to match their numbers, right? So we're going to either use follow or we're going to use this to get an extra player there. So we're in this set quite a bit, or we're putting him over and going twins to a side and the tight end weak. So this is a common set for us. So this is just belly with the lead player. This one, the kid doesn't get underneath the kick out, but you get the idea. So 9 needs to get underneath, obviously, the center who's pulling right here, but we're down. He would be the extra fitter to help on anything. And we just say opposite color jersey that shows, obviously based on what could or, might happen based on how they fit it. So here's a good look. We trade the tight end and we lead it down to the right. So we just got an extra guy. And we ask a couple kids to do this. This is actually our H-back. The previous clip was our second running back. And then, we've also used a tight end back there sometimes too. So it kind of depends on what your identity is a little bit. But that's a good look. Short yardage, red zone. We used it quite a bit just to get an extra, hat in there.
And this
And
is
then
the
the other
biggest difference. The biggest difference is you said it about 3 or 4 times already. The offense is now adding guys to the box instead of the defense. Like when I was there, and I'll be the first to admit that when I was there, we had a hard time adding. If the defense added more to the box, we didn't do a very good job of adding guys to the box blocking
Sure.
wise. But this gives you an ability to add a tight end. Now you got an H. Now you got a wing. Now you've got different personnel. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think even this year we'll be able to explore that even more, that we're comfortable with, moving kids around even more than what we have been. So it's been fun to kind of explore different formations and how to get kids involved. So the last one I'll show you is putting all that together we just talked about. So this is actually belly, lead, and follow all in one picture, right? So you got a second back in the game, and he's going to lead up through the hole, and then we're going to stick the quarterback on a follow technique behind the tailback. So you've got 2 extra fitters this time, or 2 extra guys who account for numbers in the box. And so this, again, short yardage, goal line. Our quarterback could run, obviously, so we did this quite a bit with him. Here's a good look at it. So he gets up behind. You got a couple extra fellas in there to kind of help lead the way based on their number count. It gets a little bit bottlenecked, but you get the idea. So a couple variations, I think, that help kind of make it a play that's versatile. It looks like option. It's a downhill play. We're trapping ultimately the dive key that they're used to, playing option as a defensive end. I think that's another thing we do a good job of, is we just make that defensive end have so many things coming at them. We're kicking them out with counter, we're kicking them out with belly, we're reading them, we're down blocking them with the tight end. So that's tough on a high school kid.
Yeah, I know one of the things you went back, and I know I saw on your Twitter this week, was you said when you were putting the tags together, and you just went from belly to belly follow to belly lead to belly lead follow, and all those things are just adding a tag to it. But now you've got, like you said, 2 extra guys in the box now that are lead blockers. So 100%. It's the simplicity of it that I think is good.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's what makes it fun and easy, and you can kind of move your pieces where you want them. It's like a puzzle. So then the other thing, obviously we do a lot of counter stuff, counter variations, and we were able to kind of kind of maximize even like the counter option stuff, which I'll kind of talk a lot about. I know you guys did some of this on Mark's counter thing too, which was good. So our base way of doing it, we're gonna read it out just like we do any of our triple stuff. What's different about this and why this, to me, this complements the veer stuff so well. If I had both of those images side by side, you know what I mean? Like when we're running veer and we're reading this guy, it's to that side, right? We're running it to the right. And now the back's working away. So I feel like this messes with run fits a lot. Obviously, you know, if you're reading guards, it shouldn't, but to some degree, the way people play us and the squeeze scrape stuff, this whole combination of these two things in particular really, really messes with them. So we were able to get some really, really good scenarios with this particular scheme in the triple game as a complement. I think this was one of the clips we've already seen, but this is, we were trying to work on their rotation. So they were rolling to the field or rolling to our motion. So this is a good look at counter GT to the field and then running triple back away from it and reading the backside player who is 99, who's obviously chasing, and we're running like an orbit return motion. You know, and you're +6. That's a good football play. And you're running one of your base schemes, obviously, up front against the 4-down look. We probably did it from this look more than anything. Just so this is kind of our base stuff. 2 backs and just kind of going after them. And if they were, you know, unwilling to, you know, really step down and they gave us the kick out scenario, we were going to call counter. I would probably analyze it like that. The way things kind of glued together was, you know, obviously if I was getting a heavy squeeze and that sort of thing, I'm going to run some version of our triple stuff out of veer. But if I'm getting the ability to kick out, you're going to see belly, you're going to see this, and more of a trapping scheme to try to get underneath it. And, you know, in this case, we're still reading it out on the backside, but pretty easy. You know, you're getting +4. Here's a good look at it from the backside. So he's reading the backside. It's super easy. Guy gets way upfield. Really nice kick out there. That probably gets Mark pretty fired up.
Well, yeah, but you're also, I mean, you know, you're talking about that end again. One play he's getting veered and the ball's in his face. The
That's
next
right.
play he's getting veer blocked, and here comes a puller from the front side on belly.
Right.
The next play, here comes the puller from the backside. So
Right.
I would not want to be in that guy's head,
No,
you know, that night. Yeah.
it would be hard. I mean, and again, it's like it's so repetitive in nature. And you can tell like most people have a plan, but when that plan has to involve so many different scenarios that you're going to see, it's hard to execute, I think, against what we do because of that. So here's another good look at it. Counter works really, really well. Here we get it underneath the guys because they're just a little bit all over the place after we've run a lot of veer at them. Now we're +11. You know, this is where the quarterback's going to pull it, and we get a scrape away from it. But again, I kind of wonder sometimes if that's not because of how, you know, we do the veer stuff and they were getting the backs to open to them, and you're getting the scrape over the top away from the pullers. You know what I mean? So like, again, I think it messes with what people do a little bit,
Yeah.
but this obviously is genetics here.
Well, and that backer's, you know, going to see that running back orbit or go behind. So he's thinking right now, like you said, veer to him.
That's
And
right.
now all of a sudden he's getting 2 pulls away.
Right.
And, you know, that's tough. That's tough for anybody's eyes. You know, I don't care if you practice it all
Absolutely.
week or not.
Yeah, and you know, let's say we had the handoff here. Obviously, we're in good shape because they've lost a number in the box because he's clear on the right-hand side of the offense. So, yeah, I think that's the beauty of it. You know, we do it from different sets. This is with an inline tight end. This team had a pretty good plan for us, and we were able to run counter to a tight end quite a bit with the option look and a couple different variations. But you can see kind of, you know, their technique here and how they're kind of planning it. But when we stuck a tight end in there, goes back to what you talked about and you asked about before. You know, we arced him sometimes. You know, sometimes he'd block down. We had different things that we did to try to mess with him. So there's more hesitation as a defensive end right here than what we've seen probably. And he just gets all the way underneath it, right? And then we're off for a +9 or +10 on that.
All right. So I know you've done your breakdowns because we've talked about it before. When you're sitting there in sidecar, you know, out of 2 back, how many different times are you running veer versus how many times you're running counter the opposite side? Is that something that you think's easy?
I don't know that stat, but that would be interesting to look at because it would be those 2 things more than anything. The other thing that you would get, which I think we're going to talk about in a different segment, is the triple to pass stuff because we bring the back from the backfield a lot. So those 3 variations, from that are all, some version of triple, but kind of present differently. So yeah, I don't know that stat, but that would be
Yeah, I'm just thinking
interesting.
of it from a defensive
Yeah.
standpoint. If I'm
Sure.
scouting you, how much am I going to try to find a dive back versus a pitch
Yeah.
back? And then now, is there anything going to be giving it away? But now that you throw counter in, and that just
Yeah.
throws off the tendencies. And
100%. I
Well,
think
and
personnel. I think
yeah.
personnel for us could have dictated some things. I never felt like people got a major beat on it. We'll be able to hide that more this year because we had to sub a lot to get what we wanted at times. Like the second back had to come in the game who could dive as well as run pitch, where the kid who was the second back in the game that was already there as the starter could only be the pitch player. So there were some tendencies, but like I felt like we could hide it enough that I didn't feel like people figured it out. But this year, I feel like we're going to have a lot more versatility. We're going to have a second back probably in the game that can do both, and then the primary back can do both. So there's going to be a little bit less for me to worry about in that regard.
Well, and something out of your two back stuff that I know you really used to major in is the power read stuff. And I'm sure that's something that, again, could maybe help with some of those tendencies, be maybe, somewhat of a constraint. A lot of guys run that power shovel where they're shoveling
Yep.
underneath and they're running, the gap scheme to it. So that could be
Yeah.
another, obviously way that you could,
Yep.
get through with that. But I think that's interesting out of the two back stuff to kind of.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we definitely run some power read, not as probably much as what I have in the past, but I can think of a play early in the game we scored on a two back power read look. We probably power read more off jet action right now than anything else. So here's another look. Same thing. It's an option look, but we were trying to get the tight end involved because they were giving us some trouble. So we just arc him. He's got like a circle technique off to the edge, but we end up getting a give call here, and we're again running that track inside, typical counter stuff. But they were playing us pretty heavy, so we had to be right with how we kind of blocked it. But that's just a different look, obviously, for the defense. And you can see there's some moving parts and people trying to figure it out as we're running it. The one thing that I like, the building block, is we do run the counter GH stuff where we pull the sniffer around and we leave the tackle in, right? And so the difference is from this and what we just saw is like we're not running option. This is an automatic handoff, but as you can see in the image, we're giving the appearance of option. So you're going to see this. This was one of my favorite schemes that we ran. People were displaced all the time because they got into their fits, but we blocked up the whole front and then had, obviously the tight end looping around. This was really, really good to us. We started doing some same side stuff with this as well late in the year in the playoffs, and had a couple good little looks on that and some long runs. So here's a good look at it. I think this is a touchdown here. So there is no option read. This is an automatic handoff. But again, if you look at the backfield, as a defender at the high school level, I mean, I'm thinking that looks like option to me. And about half their defense is trying to play option here, and they've got 23 people in the box.
It's like punt return.
It looks like Tim's trying to play option. Yeah, he's definitely playing the pitch. But I mean, it's hard for him because that's all he's been doing the entire time.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know if you guys can see that, but we have 10 minutes left, it said.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the counter GH stuff right there. That's really, really good. Again, it's automatic for us. We have a few different looks. Here's a good look at out of the pistol. This was in the playoffs. Same scenario. It develops a little bit slower, which I kind of like because I think it messes with their fits even more. This team was super disciplined, so they were able to find different things to do. But again, we were able to kind of get off to the races on them as well. So this game had a lot of success doing this. Again, giving them the option look, automatic handoff, down, kick out, pulling the sniffer all the way through. Again, I think that the big difference is traditional spread, everybody's running GH counter, but because we pair it with the option stuff and it looks like option, it's just harder to defend because people are moving all the time in that regard.
Well, you
And
better
then I'll kind of
respect it,
end
'cause
with
the
this
minute
because
you
I know we're
don't
shot on
respect it,
time.
somebody's pitching and then they're
Sure.
out the gate. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I think that's what gives us a little bit of an edge and whatnot. So then obviously, quarterback counter is a big part of it too. We run a few different versions of this. So right here, we're trying to set like we're running something veer look to the right, offensively speaking, but we're actually running quarterback counter back to the tight end to the boundary. So he stabs to the front side and the back replaces and helps on anything that leaks. And then the quarterback works off the back edge of that. So this team rotated. So you can see we force rotation. They lose a run fitter to the weak side. And our quarterback was obviously one of our better players, and he goes +8 against a pretty good football team.
Yeah, that's tough because again, that's a tendency breaker because it's the same side and the
Yep.
back stand.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see, obviously they're getting to their fits, and then we've got a little bit of help. Because of that, it kind of loosens up the front side, and we don't block it great, but we block it good enough, obviously. So that's kind of the core of that. And then the other thing we do a lot, I'll close with this because I know we got to get rolling here, is we run a ton of counter with jet looks, and we run power read. And so because we had a kid who could do this, we would get an empty quite a bit. If we were an empty, you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out what we were doing. We were either going to run power read or quarterback counter. And we would all kind of laugh because it always worked. And, guys were like, you sure? I'm like, yeah, I think it's pretty good. And I'll be honest, a lot of times when we couldn't get in rhythm, I would go to this out of this particular look just to expand the field and get him running, because he was sort of the battery pack, if you will, that would kind of ignite our team. And this was I remember this was the series we were kind of struggling a little bit in this game, and he got us going for plus 32. So, we do it the standard way too, with just the back, flash and cross. So, obviously versatile scheme with counter. I mean, counter, obviously, I know Mark loves it. It's got so much versatility to it. And I think we've kind of tried to maximize that, and we'll continue to make that a huge part of what we do in the option stuff.
I'm in on it. You know that. I'm in on it. All right. We're going to wrap it up. Guys, give Coach Rothfuss a follow at Jared Rothfuss on X. We want to thank you for listening to the Football Coaches Corner podcast or watching on our YouTube channel. We invite you to visit our website, which is www.footballcoachescorner.com, for some free downloads. And also, please email us at fbcoachescorner@gmail.com or DM us on X at fbcoachescorner if you have any questions about the podcast today or any thoughts. I'm sure Coach Rothfuss is willing to share, willing to talk to people about these things. But we're going to have part 3 next week. I think we're going to talk about some RPO stuff and maybe some play action off this and kind of bring it all together. But we appreciate Coach Rothfuss being there with us today with the Bear Raid. And
Yes, sir.
coaches,
Thank you.
until next time, continue to coach with pride, passion, and a purpose.